morning, good day, and good evening to all our attendees joining us for today's latest Data Science Central webinar. I'd like to first of all thank Pivotal for sponsoring today's event. We're very excited to have Pivotal as a supporter of the Data Science Central community, and we're honored to have them sponsoring our event today. I'd also like to take this opportunity to mention and show our appreciation for some of our other recent sponsors, including Tableau, LavaStorm, Alpine Data Labs, Hortonworks, and Splunk, to name just a few. These past webinars are available on demand at datasciencecentral.com. If you've not had the opportunity to review them, I would encourage you to take a look, as they do provide some very good insight and perspective into the topics discussed. Today's webinar is entitled Visualizing Big Data. Before we begin, I'd like to briefly review the format of today's webinar. Today's event will be 1 hour long. We have 3 panelists that I will introduce to all of you in just a moment. We hope to have between 10 and 15 minutes following the presentation for Q&A. And this event is being recorded and will be available on demand within the next few days. I would encourage all the attendees to provide questions directly to me throughout the presentation, and I will be reviewing them and presenting them on your behalf with the time remaining. My name is Tim Madison. I am one of the co-founders of Data Science Central, and I'll be your host for today's event. I'm pleased to introduce today's moderator, Dave Menninger of Pivotal, along with the panelists, Ted Wasserman of Tableau Software, Peter Slamp of Platfora, and John Saynor and Eric Grisoff of Information Builders. Dave is the head of business development and strategy for Pivotal, which is a subsidiary of EMC, and he is responsible for charting the big data course and future direction of this division, as well as developing partnerships to maximize the value of big data to EMC's customers. Dave also served as VP and research director for Ventana Research. He's been the vice president of marketing and product management at Vertica Systems, Oracle, Applix, InfoSense, and RII Software. The panelist, Ted Wasserman of Tableau Software, is a product management team at Tableau Software and leads Tableau's data strategy and execution. This includes product planning, setting the strategic vision, and leading the execution of new features and integration with technology vendors. Ted holds a bachelor's degree and master's degree in computer science from Queen's University. Peter of Platfora is the Vice President of Product and Business Development and is passionate about designing products that change the way users live, work, and interact within their world. He's experienced firsthand the utility and complexity of big data while building products to secure enterprise networks. He has led product and marketing teams at Solera Networks, Ironport Systems, and Cisco Systems. And John and Eric of Information Builders work directly with the company's CEO with the primary directive to expand Information Builders' working relationships within the global software services and companies. Welcome to you all. As reports and dashboards cannot adequately convey the meaning that is hidden in big data, new visualization techniques and tools have emerged to tackle these issues, unlocking the insights buried within big data and those sources. Today you will learn more about these new tools and the techniques and how to put them to use within your organizations. So David, you're going to be the moderator today. I'm going to pass the screen sharing off to you, and you can begin your presentation when you're ready.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for all who are attending. We launched on April 24th a new company in the EMC family called Pivotal, and today we are presenting a brief glimpse of information about our organization, but today's session is really about our partners. We created an organization called Pivotal, which is led by Paul Moritz as our CEO, the former CEO of VMware. We're focused on redefining the enterprise platform as a service market and capabilities to focus on enabling a new class of applications which leverage big, fast data and doing so in a cloud-independent way. The assets that we bring together are assets that have existed prior to the formation of Pivotal. So we have assets from the entirety of the Greenplum organization, as well as a number of assets from the VMware organization. We have over 1,200 people in the organization, split roughly evenly between the Greenplum world and VMware folks that have joined the organization. And you see some of the assets listed across the bottom of the screen here. Let me give you a representation of how those all tie together. We are tying these products together into a platform we call Pivotal One, which has three essential elements to it. The Cloud Fabric, consisting of the Cloud Foundry assets, which come from the VMware organization. The Data Fabric, which consists of the Greenplum assets of Pivotal Analytic Database, Pivotal Hadoop distribution, plus the VMware assets of Pivotal Gemfire and Pivotal Analytics, which is formerly known as CTOS. At the application fabric layer, we have open source tools for Spring Framework, Cloud Foundry, and Hadoop assets that are open source as well. And we have expert services in the form of Pivotal Labs to help create applications and Pivotal Data Science Labs to apply analytics to the data collected and managed in these applications. The reason that we're hosting this webinar, and actually a series of webinars, is to promote the partnerships that we've formed. One of the things that we believe is important, represented in part by the adoption of open source technologies, is an open platform. And so we have recruited and have been fortunate to have approximately 70 different organizations support our platform, the Pivotal Hadoop distribution, when it was announced in February. And so we're concentrating in this webinar series on those partners that are supporting the data fabric. And one of the things I like to say is that you can't browse a billion rows of data. Well, you can, but it's not a very effective way to find what's interesting in that information. And so the first in the webinar series that we've chosen to focus on today is around visualization. So this webinar series and one that will follow each month will focus on different aspects of the partner ecosystem. And today we've chosen to focus on visualizing big data. You can get more information about Pivotal at gopivotal.com, or you can follow us on Twitter at gopivotal. So those are the brief remarks I'll make about Pivotal itself. And at this point, I'd like to turn it over to Ted Wasserman from Tableau to explain their capabilities. And I want to say congratulations to Ted for a successful IPO on Friday. Ted, over to you.
Great. Thanks, David, and thanks for the congratulations. We're really excited about where the industry is going and what Tableau is bringing to the market. And good morning and afternoon to everyone, depending on where you are. My name's Ted Wasserman. I'm on the product management team at Tableau, and thanks again for taking the time to join us. We've been partners with Greenplum and EMC for a number of years and really look forward to continuing that partnership and spirit going forward with Pivotal. We're really excited about the investment and innovation that Pivotal is making in this space. And today I'm going to share a few thoughts about why I think this new generation of BI tools like Tableau are getting such broad adoption in the marketplace. And I'll also show you a short demo to illustrate some of my points. So at Tableau, our mission is really simple. It's to help people see and understand their data. And that's been the mission from day one, which is almost 10 years ago now, and it's still our mission today. And if you think about it, it's a very simple mission, but it's very big and important. Let's move this down so this is out of the way. We want to help people, ordinary people of all kinds, bring their data to life in the form of higher visual analytics, dashboards, and graphics. And many of you have heard the saying that a picture is worth 1,000 words. Well, there's actually truth to that. In fact, that's the way our brains naturally process data the best. And we believe it's no longer enough to only provide data access to those elite few, the data scientists or Hadoop MapReduce programmers or engineers who might have the technical to access the data. but maybe aren't in the business making the actual decisions. So don't get me wrong, we love those folks, but we're also talking about empowering that manager in the line of business who has that domain expertise, but maybe doesn't have the skills necessary to operate the tools to be able to answer their own questions. And one of the ways you can do that is to create an entirely new and easy interactive vision for working with your data. Because if you think about it, a visual peek at your data to identify outliers or spot trends or orient yourself to the bounds and shape of your data, those are all standard steps that are needed when working with any data, but are even more important to do visually when working with big data. As Dave mentioned, right, have you ever tried scanning a billion-row spreadsheet to find the interesting pattern that requires more analysis, right? Brains aren't wired to do that very well. You might be wondering, what's preventing people from doing this today? And the answer to that is, if you think about yesterday's generation of BI tools, they're really just taking their toll on the people. And I would argue there's three different groups where these people fit in. There are the majority who are constantly dependent on a select few folks in another department to answer the basic questions. And they feel stuck, right? Often even demoralized. Sometimes even to the point they just give up on analytics completely because it's too hard. According to a recent survey I saw, I think it might have been the BARC survey, I read that only 8% of people within a company routinely make decisions from their data, right? So that sort of begs the question, what do those other 92% of people do? That's crazy, right? And something that we need to change as an industry. That's, maybe thinking that no other options exist, take matters into their own hands and start building spreadsheets, which wastes countless hours in Excel, often with poor results and producing questionable data. And with more of these spreadsheets floating around the organization, this leads to even more mistakes and governance issues and so on. And finally, there's those elite few group of people who might have the expertise necessary to operate the machinery and glean insight from their data, or maybe enough to have a group of specialists there to support them. So at Tableau, we're really focused on enabling anybody to help answer their own questions from their data. The last point I wanted to make about working with big data is it's incredibly important to support what we call this cycle of visual analysis. It isn't just about creating that final dashboard or app or using fancy colors or layouts. And I mean, don't get me wrong, those are great and make the results engaging. But it's also about that journey to get there. And it's not a linear journey. It's iterative. It changes, right? Sometimes you make mistakes or want to go down a different path in your analysis, which really requires you to quickly go back a step or two and choose a different path. The life cycle includes everything from identifying and getting your data, establishing the structure of it, choosing the best way to visualize it, drawing conclusions or insights from those views, and then getting that conclusion supported by the data so that you're able to tell a compelling story succinctly. And as an analyst, you really need to be effective throughout this entire cycle in order to make the best use of data. And what I thought I'd do is just show you a very quick demo about how one product, my product, Tableau, supports this cycle of visual analysis and hit on some of the other points I raised in this introduction section. Here on my screen now, hopefully, is our Tableau desktop product, which allows you to connect to dozens of different data sources, everything from Excel to databases like Greenplum, Oracle, Salesforce, and Google Analytics, or big data stored in Hadoop. I've already connected to a data source that contains data from the peer-to-peer microfinance nonprofit called Kiva. Some of you might already be familiar with them. All of Kiva's lenders are individual Kiva website to find and fund these different loan requests across the world, often in very small increments, sometimes even in the $10 to $20 range. And by aggregating many lenders together, Kiva can essentially almost offer any size loans to entrepreneurs who would normally have no access to capital. And the data we're going to be looking at today is made up probably of about 500,000 loans, which comprises their entire loan history. All the columns of my data set as fields in Tableau, which I can then just double-click or drag and drop to visualize. For example, why don't we just take a look at the total amount of loans that Kiva has arranged in their history. What I can do is just double-click loan amount and can quickly see that Kiva has put out almost $400 million of loans over the last maybe 10 years or more. I think the data set starts at 1995. Let's quickly just change this to see, what is the average loan amount that they give out. So just under $800, is their average loan amount they give out to these entrepreneurs around the world. Now already, maybe you just saw that without any scripting or wizards, I've already created a visualization that answered 2 questions. And the program just took care of writing all the necessary queries behind the scenes to get the data out of the data source so that as an analyst, I can my questions, right? The software just disappears into the background. And this really has the effect of enabling just regular business users to query their data directly, whereas before maybe they had to go through IT. And I can continue to answer more questions just by dragging other fields I'm interested in into the view, or I can move backwards to previous steps with a single click. And unlike other tools, there's no need to start over or open a wizard to move backwards. Why don't we just clear this sheet and look and see where these loans have gone. And that process is just as easy as that previous bar chart I created. If I just double-click on country here, Tableau automatically geocodes and displays the countries where the loans have gone. Then I can add in the total loan amount to view this on a map with just a click. And what we see here is the size of the circles representing the where most of the loans have gone. So we see Peru has, the United States, they haven't given out that many loans to. It probably makes sense. They're more focused on the developing world. This is one view of the data. If I wanted to look at it in a different way, perhaps I could just drag this and use a field map or color to represent the same information, right? So the darker the color in this case, the more money was granted to entrepreneurs in those countries. And this provides a very quick way of spotting, where a lot of the loan money. If I tried to look at 500,000 rows of data comprising all the different loans, that might have been very difficult. And most of the time, the data I need to answer a question isn't always just in one place, right? For example, maybe I'd love to augment this view with additional demographic information about country populations. However, that data isn't part of this Kiva data set. However, I actually happen to have this data set available. I just have it here in a local on my laptop, which really just provides a list of countries and their relative populations. What I can quickly do is I can just drag and drop this Excel file into Tableau, click OK. You notice here in the upper window we've loaded that data in, and as one of the fields in that data set, just like we saw, is population information. I can drag maybe population onto the tooltip, so now that when I hover over the different countries in the seeing the loan amount, I can actually see the population of that country too. Right? So with a few simple mouse clicks, I'm able to bring in data from multiple data sources together in the same view on the fly without any scripting or maybe a 3-month ETL process. And that's really powerful. Another one of Kiva's main initiatives is to try and spread the program to as many countries as possible. And as you can imagine, that takes time, right? This growth, you could see that quite easily by maybe adding a filter to this map. So maybe what I'll do is I'll add this funded date field onto filters, and I will select a range of dates, click OK. And maybe I'll just add this filter to the view itself so that I can see, maybe I'll start in 2005 and just see if I just drag a little bit over across the years. So now I'm looking towards the end of 2006. Let's look into 2006. As we drag the filter out, we can see the organization expanding from maybe small starts in Africa and Central America to dozens of countries over the world. And this slicing and dicing capability allows users to create one view to answer many different types of questions, which decreases their overall analysis time. Other microfinance programs, beyond Kiva really have focused on agriculture, which is definitely needed. really has had a focus on enabling entrepreneurs of all kinds. And it might be interesting to see, which loan sectors have received the most funding. And sometimes our Tableau users don't even know what views to create. However, we try and make that as easy as possible. What I can do here is I can look at the different fields in my data set that I'm interested in. Perhaps I'll select here loan sector, and I'll also select loan amount, and use the Show Me capability in Tableau to suggest different visualization types. So I can look at it as a bar chart, pie chart. Maybe I'll look at it as a tree map, because that's the view that I think tells the best story. Right? Not everyone is a visualization expert, but all they need when they use Tableau is a question, and Tableau has built-in best practices that enables users to best display that information. And I can continue to edit this as I want. Maybe we want different distributions of loan types that Kiva has achieved. Maybe what I'll do here is I'll add more detail about the loan activities, and I'll use color to represent that. So instead of looking at this on labels, I'll look at it on color. I'll keep that color, and we can see within the different categories what are the different loan activities that make. I've also created another view before we started this that just shows the funding over time by sector that we'll also use maybe in this final dashboard we'll build that brings all the information together. On the top, we show the actuals, and on the bottom, we show the percentage of totals over time that each loan sector makes up. And now that we have, 3 interesting views of the data, it's time to maybe combine this all these different into an interactive dashboard. And as you might expect, creating a dashboard is just as straightforward as creating a visualization itself. It's just drag and drop. And I can continue to combine as many elements as I want on the dashboard. And really what this involves is just dragging the different views I created onto this single pane here and looking at them over time, or looking at them all in one place. Added elements to the dashboard, I can arrange them however I want. For example, maybe I want to make elements floating on top of each other to save space. So with tools like Tableau, you can actually customize exactly where you want to put things so that you have ultimate control over what appears on your final dashboard to tell the story to other users. And this gives people a lot of flexibility to make sure they can create the dashboards that match their corporate standards and maybe the last step I want to do before sharing this dashboard with others is making it interactive. And I could do that in several ways. I could add more filters like I have here with this funded date, or I can make any of the views interactive themselves. For example, I'm going to make this funding by country view interactive by using it as a filter that filters all the other views in the dashboard. So now when I select a country, the other views in the dashboard get updated in real time. Or when I make multiple selections, other views in the dashboard update to reflect that selection. This makes it very interactive and nice for people to get different insights that might have been very difficult to get otherwise. And there's obviously a lot more I could show, but this was a short demo really to reinforce some of the topics I mentioned earlier. Right, this new breed of BI tools is really focused on making big data and really any data accessible to people beyond that traditional data scientist or developer. That is to completely change the paradigm of working with data that enables people to answer their own questions, using these rich visual interfaces so that they can explore the data with these simple drag and drop operations. And it's really this combination of usability and rich capability that has enabled many organizations to start doing doing business analytics on their big data and allowed many more to achieve analytic goals more efficiently. Thanks again for the opportunity to be here today. I'll turn it back over to David.
Thanks, Ted. Appreciate you sticking to the tight time frames we have. We want to try and get presentations in from all three and still have some time for questions. I do want to encourage people to submit their questions in the questions panel if you have any while we're going through the presentation. And we will get to all your questions either at the Q&A at the end or in follow-up after the event. So at this point, I'd like to turn it over to Peter Schlamp from Platfora. Peter, over to you.
Thank you, David. Let's see if we get the now that my presentation is up and running, let me make sure I'm showing my screen. Okay, great. So David, thank you very much for inviting us to join the webinar today. My name is Peter Schlamp. I'm the Vice President of Products and Business Development here at Platfora. And let me just start by telling everybody on the phone who we are. So Platfora software instantly transforms raw data in Hadoop into interactive in-memory business intelligence. No ETL or data warehouse is required. In the past, if you wanted to analyze big data, you needed multiple different pieces of software together. You needed to do ETL and to transform the data in some way and put it into the next step, which is the data warehouse. You need that separate software, the data warehouse. And then the third step, you needed a standalone business intelligence and analytics software to be able to analyze that data. With the advent of Hadoop, Platfora is able to provide software that does all three of those together. And I would like to say, again, with our partner at Pivotal Labs, we support the Pivotal Hadoop distribution. We were happy to participate in their launch a couple weeks ago. And all of the interest that we've seen around the move that Pivotal is making by building the new company there. So let me tell you about how we see customers come to us. And so many people on the phone are probably interested in Hadoop. They may have started to use Hadoop, and typically we see a bit of a maturity cycle that people go through as they start to think about using Hadoop and trying to do traditional business intelligence and analytics on top of Hadoop. And the first step that they take is they use tools with SQL-like interfaces to be a bridge between their business intelligence applications and Hadoop itself. And in particular, I'll call out Hive. And I think that there's a lot of very interesting work that is happening in the community these days around making faster SQL interfaces into Hadoop, and I'll talk about those in a minute. But the first step where you take Hive and you connect it directly to your business intelligence application, what you end up with is you end up with a limited set of the data that's actually in Hadoop. And then the work to maintain and model the data in Hive is very complex. So you've got your IT staff that's spending their time working with Hive and Hadoop, and then you've got your analysts only working with a limited set of the data. The other thing that I'll say, and this is I think many people in the industry already know this, but working against Hive directly is very, very slow. So if you were doing interactive business intelligence against the data in Hive, every time you made a move in your interface or submitted a new query, it would take minutes to hours for that to come back. And of course, that's where Pivotal and the work that they're doing in the space comes in. They want to find faster ways for you to be able to work against that. So the next step that we see, and this is circa late 2012, is that instead of people doing what you saw on the previous slide, they've kind of thrown that out the window, and in kind of maturity phase 2, what they decide to do is they decide to pull data directly out of Hadoop and put it into a data warehouse. And that data warehouse could be any one of the data warehouses that are popular out there today. But what they're doing is they're writing MapReduce code, and again, they're writing Hive queries, and they're pulling data out, and they're putting it into this data warehouse. Now, the solution that they've got is that the data is actually fast. The BI application, the queries against the data warehouse are actually fast, but you still got the problem of a limited amount of data from Hadoop, and you also have the IT staff consistently populating that data warehouse in the middle. So Platfora's solution to this is to create what we call flexible software-defined data marts that live in between the BI application and the Hadoop cluster. in this case, pivotal Hadoop distribution. And so what you get in this scenario is you eliminate the need to write MapReduce or Hive queries on the left-hand side of the screen. And on the right-hand side of the screen, you give your analysts access to 100% of the data in Hadoop. Even if as new data is landing in Hadoop, even as new data sets are being put into Hadoop, the analysts have access to that data within minutes, instead of having to wait for the IT staff to have to pull the data out in some way to make it accessible to them. And at the same time, if there's some data in these flexible software data marts that wasn't available the first time they logged into the application, the analysts themselves can go in and they can modify these software-defined data marts for themselves, for their own analysis, and they don't have to call up IT to solve their problem. So Platfora is software that combines all three of these things together. The Hadoop distribution, or not the Hadoop distribution, the Hadoop data refinery, the scale-out in-memory data mart and processing engine, and at the top of the slide, a web-based business intelligence application that users access through their web browser on their platform of their choice. And it provides this closed-loop interactive analysis of big data, where the analysts themselves are able to drive Hadoop jobs without having to write a line of MapReduce or Hive and be able to get the data out of Hadoop that they need. And so I'm going to do a demo for you now and show this to you live. But there's three things I want to kind of have you look for as we go through the demo, three components of the Platfora system. So at the bottom of the slide, you'll see we'll talk about data sets. And data sets are a description in Platfora of the raw data that's in Hadoop and how we would pull out the raw data when we need it. The second is what we call a lens. A lens is an in-memory, scale-out, columnar, compressed data mart that we build automatically from Hadoop. And the last one is what we call a visboard. And a visboard is this interactive data discovery BI application where an analyst user is able to analyze the big data that's in the lens below it. So I'll go ahead and switch into a demo. And so we're looking at this demo. We'll start with this one. We're looking at a demo that is running currently. This is running in the cloud. It's running on Amazon Web Services. And so Platfora software runs anywhere you want. It can run in your own data center. It can run in a private cloud. It can run in the public cloud. And in this case, we're looking at two charts. This is data from an online photo sharing website where users are able to go in and vote on the aesthetic qualities of various photos. And so we're dealing with tens of thousands of photos in this particular case. And we're rendering lots and lots of individual marks on the screen at a single time. One thing that, obviously one of the things that you're seeing is I'm accessing this through the web browser, and this is 100% HTML5, so you can access it on your Mac or your PC or even your tablet device. And one of the challenges that we overcame in developing the software is the ability to have complex interactive visualizations being rendered through a web browser. And so with this visualization that you're seeing here, you're seeing a bubble chart, so you're seeing it's essentially a scatter plot encoded with color and size as well. And you're seeing tens of thousands of marks being rendered on the screen at once. Platfora is capable, and as somebody mentioned before, when you're trying to do big data analysis, doing it visually is a very important thing. We're able to render millions of marks through a web browser at any given time. So you're not giving up any power in moving to a completely web-based interface when using Platfora. And so as I mentioned, you've got interactivity through the visualization. So we're looking at how people are, how people are rating the different photos on this photo sharing website. And one of the insights is that people tend to kind of center around what the photos are that are actually beautiful. So you'll see how the photos that have that are in this category here have they tend to cluster together, and a lot of people find them beautiful at the same time. So I'm going to switch over and show you a different visualization. And this is a heat map, and so you've got two different visualizations here on the screen at the same time. And again, we've got interactivity between the two visualizations. And in this particular screen, I'm showing you how we built the visualization. So you've got your various fields available in your data, and you're able to drag and drop them over into the columns and rows fields over here on the left, and building the visualizations in front of you. You can add as many of these onto the screen as you want at any time. And also one of the features that you get of this being a web-based tool is you get collaboration across all of the users within your environment. So everybody has access to this. Platfora is software that is licensed on an annual subscription basis. So it's a single server, and you can have as many users as you want use Platfora at a given time. We don't have a per-user license fee or a desktop client that you need to use. And so if you have this open to everybody, and you select a couple data points that are interesting to you, and you want to make a comment about that and say, this is the data we're looking for, and I want to take a snapshot of that. I used a snapshot, and I'll add that to my comment, and I'll post that. Everybody that has access to this viz board now has access to that comment, and you can collaborate together on the insights that you're finding. So this is all very interesting, but why don't we go back and show how data gets into Platfora in the first place? And to do that, I'm going to go back to what we call the data catalog, and I'll go back actually one step. And if you're an analyst and you're looking for data in Hadoop to analyze, you need some way to be able to find it. And in this case, the data catalog gives the analyst a way to search and find what they're looking for. So let's say in this example we're an analyst at a major airline, and we're trying to analyze the flights that were scheduled throughout history, and we're trying to determine when I should schedule different flights to be able to make sure that connections were made across the world. So what I'll do is I'll go ahead and I'll type in flights, and we'll see the different data sets that are living in Hadoop having to do with flights, and I find the one that I'm looking for. I'll click on that, and this is giving us a view into the data sets that are living in Hadoop. And in order to, anybody can add one of these in. An IT user would typically do it, but an analyst themselves could add a data set from Hadoop into Platfora, and this is the view that you get. I'll click Edit Data Set, and you'll see how we've gone from, I'll go back one step into parse data, and you'll see how we go from raw data, directly from raw data into what we call wrangled data or columnar data, and then your ability to add fields and enrich the data set right here within the interface. And I won't go through too much of that now. I'll cancel out of this. But to go from having that raw data in Hadoop into having the interactive in-memory data, I'm going to create a lens, and I'll say lens for Data Science Central Webinar. And I'll go through and I'll choose the fields that are interesting to me. And we could be talking about petabyte scale data sets here, and you're going to want to choose the fields that you need for your analysis, obviously, when you're dealing with data of that scale. So I might be interested in the number of flights, maybe the average departure delay, and the distance in miles that the flights traveled. I'll go ahead and I'll click Build. We'll schedule a job to build lens for Data Science Central Webinar comprised of 5 fields. I'll click Confirm. And in the background, what Platfora is doing is we've generated MapReduce code, and we pushed it over into Hadoop. And Hadoop is doing the heavy lifting of building that lens and bringing it over to Platfora, so we have the interactive in-memory data to be able to analyze against. So great. That's the end of the demo. I'll go back to my slides quickly. And I just want to talk about one particular use case that one of our customers, Edmunds.com, had. Edmunds was one of our early beta participants, and they came to us and they had a traditional business analytics pipeline where they had data being generated from their systems, put into a traditional data warehouse, and then analyzed with a traditional business intelligence tool. And they had a data explosion data coming from their new mobile application, data coming from their dealers that they were partners with, et cetera. And they had all these different data sets that they needed to combine together in Hadoop to perform the analysis that they needed. The problem was, as soon as they went to Hadoop, they decreased the number of analysts that could use that data from 50 within their company down to 5. And Platforma came in, and within the same day of installing, they were building the visualizations that they needed. And after about 2 weeks, all the old BI users had been trained up on Platforma, and now they are able to explore through all the data in Hadoop and drive insights out of that data in literally minutes instead of weeks to months of time that it took to pull data out of Hadoop in the past and bring it into their old BI tool. So that's it for mine. Thank you very much again, David, and I look forward to questions at the end.
Thank you, Peter. Hey, can I borrow that flight database to see if my flight next week is going to be on time?
Sure, I'll send it to you after.
All right, we've seen a couple of different alternatives for visualization now, and we're going to go for a third view from information builders. I'm going to turn it over to John and Eric, and let's get your take on visualization and how information builders handles the problem.
Thank you very much, David. Show my screen. Here we are. I'm John Senor, and with me is Eric Reisdorf from Information Builders. And just like the other presenters, we share the same frustration that a lot of people have, and that is the ability to actually get at and do data analytics and visualization on a really large-scale basis. So what we're going to do is take a few minutes to familiarize you with our company and with our product, which is known as WebFocus, and then show you how to visualize data on a very large scale using a new data visualization concept called info apps. So those of you who are not familiar with information builders, we're a Gartner Leadership Quadrant BI application platform. We make business intelligence products, integration products, and data integrity products. We're located in New York City, and we're privately held. We've been around about 38 years, and we have many thousands of customers and many millions of users around the world. WebFocus is our flagship product, and as I said, it is a complete business intelligence and data integration platform, has complete advanced analytics capabilities, and also performance management applications which are an adjunct to the base WebFocus platform. So what is an info app? And we all know today there are really two approaches to getting information into the hands of the big user, into the end users. You can take the Microsoft approach, which has been for a long, long time, deliver tools in the hands of the users and let the users do it themselves. And then there's actually a more modern concept represented here by Steve Jobs, and that is there's an app for everything. And that's really what we believe is necessary on a very large scale basis, particularly outside of the firewall. End users want applications that are simple to use, simple to navigate, and produce the kinds of results they want. And what's emerging in the market is this concept called an info app. An info app is a self-service visualization and analytics application. It uses guided navigation that's role-oriented, context-oriented. It's user customizable in that the user can make changes to the screen, lay things out the way they want to lay them out. It's very flexible from a deployment point of view. It can be deployed on the web. It can be deployed mobile, lots of different ways. It's also highly scalable into a cloud environment, highly scalable to literally any number of users. And there's no end-user training or software licensing necessary in order to use an info app. Info apps are the core of what we use WebFocus to develop. And we're going to be showing you an application here in a few minutes that was actually developed with EMC, was actually demonstrated at the recent HIMSS conference for healthcare. But you're all familiar with info apps. If you've ever used Amazon or you buy anything, if you used Expedia, you understand what guided navigation is. It gives you the ability to navigate an application within the context of something that you're trying to discover. Who uses info apps? Users want applications. We all know developers want tools, but there's a limit to how many people that are using information can actually use tools. So info applications are really a solution that target a very widespread audience. So I'm going to turn it over to Eric right now, who's actually going to show you an info app that we developed with EMC Pivotal. Eric, you want to take over?
Sure, John. Thank you. And John, if you don't mind, you're going to advance the slides for me, okay?
Okay.
So the topic of the demonstration walkthrough that I'm going to show you today is specifically using predictive social and sentiment analytics for accountable care. As John mentioned, we developed this, co-developed this with EMC for the HIMSS conference, and it's a eye-opening example of how we can actually use big data in an industry. Many people think that big data like social media and RFID scans are used primarily for marketing purposes. However, when you introduce things like hand washing initiatives in the VA hospital, and they put RFID readers next to every hand washing station, the amount of data explodes. And when you start, what a lot of people don't realize is every time you click like on Facebook, it's capturing who you are, your gender, where your location is, and everything else. So what we're going to do is show you how we can apply these new big data technologies and capabilities to solve a real problem in accountable care. Go ahead and advance the slide, please, John. So every industry has, drivers. The drivers in healthcare happen to be, of course, healthcare reform, as well as the need to move from a fee-for-service type of experience to a quality experience. Healthcare organizations are spending a lot more time now trying to make sure that people's experiences are not just beneficial from the outcome, but that they go home and say what a great experience they had, as well as they could have had in the healthcare arena. So these are the drivers. You've got to contain costs, you've got to enhance quality and outcomes, and you've got to improve operations. Advance slide, please, John. So what do our providers worry about? Our providers worry about, well, that we're trying to reduce hospital-acquired conditions. These are known as HAIs. Very bad to go to a hospital and get sick in the hospital. Many of them are being paid now based on long-term outcomes of managing chronic diseases. And mostly now they're going to start getting fined when they release somebody and then that person has to be readmitted within a certain amount of time. Okay, so those are some of the things that the provider's worried about. Really, the patients on the bottom are worried about the same things. Am I going to get sick when I go to the hospital? What do other people say about the hospital? Now, what's interesting about the healthcare industry is there isn't a more sentiment-driven industry, I don't think. What do other people say? We've all had these experiences about a particular doctor, about a particular healthcare facility. Advance slide, please. So we're going to use these technologies to enhance the experience of care for both patients and providers, improve the health of populations through insight instead of oversight, and we're going to show you how we can do that while reducing the costs and reducing readmissions. Advance slide, please. The first thing you have to do when you implement any type of environment, such as a Pivotal HD or any kind of business intelligence solution, is you have to get to the data. Well, with WebFocus comes pre-bundled over 80-plus adapters that install, configure, and go. Your existing information systems are all web service, RESTful web service, and natively API enabled. So we've written, over the past 30 years, we've written native APIs to things like Teradata. We have a very specific API to Pivotal. We have a very specific API to all of the different databases you see here. As well, we also access ERPs through the application layer like Lawson, PeopleSoft, SAP. So as soon as you install the software, you're able to begin accessing it. Now what we see is we see social media and Facebook and machine-generated data as an extension of the data warehouse. We don't necessarily see it as a replacement of the data warehouse. You've got data that you want to enrich all of that machine-generated data with. On the top of the screen, you see our Facebook adapter. Once you configure our Facebook adapter, you have access to everything that Facebook has access to. And it's all using the same common layer of metadata, same common SQL-like interface to access it, same common front-end tools. But you have access to everything on Facebook as soon as, well, whatever user ID you have. Most public Facebook pages are all public, of course, and available to everyone. On the bottom, I wanted to show you, with one click, I can move from any of those data sources into a Pivotal architecture. We support the bulk load. We've written an API directly to the Pivotal bulk load, so we can go directly from any of those 80-plus adapters and start getting real value out of the Pivotal architecture as soon as possible. Okay, next slide, please. This is an example of some of our social media capabilities. So, for instance, you can measure your own Facebook page, but also pull up your competitors' Facebook pages and see what people are saying about them there. In this example, it's healthcare. So if I wanted to look up or build up my oncology department, I might go pull up the Mayo Clinic's Facebook page and see what doctors people really like there. I might want to, if I want to build up my pediatrics, maybe pull up St. Jude's website or Facebook page. This is all automatically going to Facebook. There's no logging in. There's nothing like that. It's a direct interface using FQL, the Facebook interface, to get to Facebook. Now, in the middle there, you'll see a little chart. It says, hey, who's getting the most likes and what's their average sentiment score? We have taxonomy-based sentiment built into the tool. So now you can actually go and look at the actual comments themselves and say, is this a positive comment or a negative comment? If you look at things like Al Jazeera's Facebook page, you will see, if you do the same analysis against their page, the more inflammatory the remark, the more likes it gets, and they're mostly not favorable sentiment type of remarks. Now what I did is I took that same technology and I said, let's apply it to normal unstructured data in the hospital. How about ICU chart notes? So I said, let's take all these ICU chart notes, 50,000 patients worth, and run them through and create a tag cloud on what people are saying. Well, right away I can tell it's a neonatology ICU. And because neonatology is the word that's appearing most frequently, which is representative, of course, of these tag clouds, how big the words are. Now, I can also see things like notes and events and murmurs, families. So I might want to assign patient advocates to this particular ICU to make sure the patients and the families have appropriate accommodations while their children are in the hospital. On the right, you see a chart that shows how many notes are being written for each person over any time period. What better way to measure care than how many people are visiting that person? Every time someone visits them, they have to write a note. John mentioned data veracity and our data quality capabilities. The 2 reports, I know they're not very visible on your screen, but 2 reports at the bottom represent that how a simple miscoding error can really change the results of the report. And we have the ability, as part of our ETL process, to fix the any kind of data integrity problems. And of course, you have the sentiment score driven notes. Now you can incorporate any unstructured data or structured data into the same screen. Okay, click please. So what we've done here is we've shown how we can use this to measure and improve our hospital and doctor reputation. We can see certain diseases if they pop up a lot in the notes. Certainly we're measuring our patient satisfaction. And again, we're using this to see what kinds of things people are writing. We have automated adapters plugged right in, just like into all of those existing information systems, right into Twitter and Facebook as well. Next screen, please. Another thing that is very important when you talk about big data is incorporating predictive analytics. One thing that's important to mention here is that as part of our quick copy or ETL process, we're creating all the metadata you need for BI, predictive analytics, and ETL. So you're not having to keep your metadata synchronized between the different products. It's one layer of metadata. In this case, we're using open source R as an embedded predictive analytics engine, and we've built our own user interface on top of it. So we can predict things like who's likely to be readmitted within the next 30 days, who's likely to slip and fall, who's likely to acquire an infection. Now, we don't need to start changing business processes to start predicting these things. Because we have an open source predictive modeling engine, we can start with anything you have history on. We have over 20 police agencies using the same technology to predict where crime is going to happen around the city on a shift-by-shift basis. So these are just examples. In this case, I threw in some comorbidity scores. I see that, well, if you've got congestive heart failure or low electrolytes, you may come into the hospital with a sprained ankle, but because of these other comorbidities that you have going on, you're likely to be readmitted. Now, this could be run on a hospital level, on a floor level, on a unit level. So if I have a heart specialist that's visiting my hospital, I'll have them go visit the people who have a high comorbidity score of congestive heart failure, for instance. Clearly, this allows you to improve the patient and caregiver experience because you can focus on those patients that are highest at risk. Next slide, please, John. John mentioned some of our info apps that are publicly deployed. We have banks running 2 million customers. These are info apps that have been developed and have quickly been deployed to millions of people that serve a very specific purpose. Either they're checking their AT&T bill and AT&T's e-bill, or they are checking their information in the bank. And the key here is that you really need no training, and we're not just scaling to the back end to the huge amount of call detail records. We're scaling to the front end to how many people can take advantage of the data. Next slide, please, John.
Hey, Eric, I'm going to jump in here for just a moment because it looks like we're just about out of time. So
and this
for
is
everybody
my
that's
last
on the
slide.
phone call, I just want everybody that, in case they have to leave at a hard stop, we're going to continue a little bit beyond the time. Plenty of asked a lot of questions. Any questions that don't get answered today will be followed up by all the panelists. So just want to make sure that's clear. So go ahead and finish up.
Okay, I'm on my last slide here.
I want to make sure they're aware. Go ahead.
Thank you. Thanks for bringing that up. And so this is an example of some of the stunning visual that you get with web focus. So when we talk about info apps, an info app can be the kind of info app I just showed you, but an info app could also be this little gauge that shows me my length of stay. Once that info app is available to a user, just built and deployed on the port as a resource, any user then can grab that length of stay and say, I want that on my dashboard, or I want the KPIs on readmissions on my dashboard. So each of these components, these information, very specific components, are an info app that any user has access to, that has permission, of course, and can be deployed. Now, when I say permission, it's very important to understand we have full SaaS cloud support. We support full multi-tenancy. We integrate with LDAP and Active Directory services. So one single image of software you can deploy in a public environment. You can deploy common content, and then as you onboard customers, we have a very easy onboarding process. You onboard customers, they each get their own administrator and can build their own content. Or if you're doing a private on-premise cloud deployment, you onboard departments just like you would onboard customers. Here's an example of the tree map that you saw earlier. In this case, we see most of our money is coming from Medicare. But when I look at the average patient cost by payer, I see most of the more expensive procedures are being done on auto liability patients. And that's because auto liability patients are likely there for trauma or for higher priced procedures, whereas Medicare patients come in for everything. Next slide, please, John, and it's a wrap-up. This is our architecture that fits it all. We've got our adapters on the back, loading the unified analytical platform. Of course, that should say Pivotal instead of Greenplum now. We have Predictive Analytics, Sentiment Analytics, ETL, ELT, all built into the same architecture. And then, of course, you can deploy it out to anyone. Next slide, please. So these are our wrap-up slides. You want to cover this, John?
Well, so working very, very closely with EMC Pivotal, as I said, we sincerely believe that the way you reach the maximum number of users is to design and deploy info applications. Applications are what people want today. Web Focus makes it easy with a very few number of tools that come with the platform to build and deploy info apps. Apps that are appropriate for end users that are totally disinterested in how to learn and manipulate IT-type tools, all the way down through and including the power user who may be developing for a department or a line of business. If you'd like to see actually a live demonstration of that application, simply contact myself or Eric Reisdorf. We'll actually show you how that app was built. So thank you for your time, and I'll turn it back over to David.
Okay, thanks, folks. Tim, I see we still have hundreds of folks on the line. Maybe we should take a couple of the most interesting questions, even though we're past the top of the hour.
Yeah, we have. We can certainly do that. For those of you that's still on the call, we appreciate you staying late. Putting up on the screen the contact information for all those that have presented. So if you have follow-up questions beyond those that may have already been asked, take down their information and you can contact them directly. So we'll just do two. There were a lot of different questions coming in, obviously, but some that sort of centered around this topic of, are there certain types of data that are better for visualizations? Should it be structured versus unstructured, numerical versus text, etc.? So I'll leave it to Dave, you decide, or whoever wants to contribute to that answer. Go ahead.
We'll go around the horn. Why don't we start with Ted?
Hi. So definitely having some structure in place to do the analytics is definitely helpful. Part of the journey here, as part of this visual cycle of visual analysis, is determining what the right structure is. Data sets that our customers use do have some innate type of structure in it, so it's just a matter of finding it, instantiating it, and then doing your analytics on top of it.
Okay, Peter, your comments on types of data that are best for visualization?
Yeah, one thing I'd add to the conversation is that around Hadoop is that many people think of Hadoop as completely unstructured data where you throw Word documents and PDFs and videos and things like that into Hadoop. And in practice, in reality, 80+% of the data that's today in Hadoop has structure of some kind. We call it semi-structured data. It could be, XML files or JSON or weblog files or something like that. So, it doesn't really matter as long as the data has some structure to it. You should be able to analyze it and find insights from it.
Okay, John, anything you'd like to add?
Well, I think as all three vendors demonstrated, the challenge for the enterprise today is to be able to effectively use all data. Some of your data is going to be very structured, legacy data. Some of your data is going to be very unstructured. The ability to deal with all types of data and do it effectively is really, I think, what the audience should concentrate on.
Okay. And Tim, one last question?
Sure. Let's see. One of the questions that was asked several times is, what is the implementation cycle of these various tools? How long does it take to become sort of proficient? So anything around that sort of topic of implementation, hardware that might be used, that kind of stuff, and what is sort of the cycle?
Sure. Why don't we go in reverse order this time? John, we'll start with you.
Well, actually, what the demonstration we used was a part of a specific platform that we built with EMC Pivotal, and it's called the Data Analytics Platform for Pivotal Greenplum. It's literally designed to be rolled in and have you up and running and developing useful information within a day. Okay,